Have you ever promised yourself, starting tomorrow I will change, and then a week later everything is still the same? Have you ever felt that you talk a lot about goals, about dreams, about success, but deep inside there is a small voice whispering, can I really do it? Keeping promises to others helps you build a reputation, but keeping promises to yourself is what builds who you are. I have met many hardworking people. They work non-stop. They read books, attend seminars, set big goals. But there is one silent thing that keeps them from going far. They do not keep the small commitments they make to themselves. And each time they break such a promise, no matter how small, they unintentionally place a crack in the foundation of their confidence, like a seed lying beneath the soil. No one sees it, no one praises it. But if each day it does not quietly push upward, it will rot before it ever reaches the light. Your life is the same. Success does not begin with applause. It begins with very small promises that only you know about and whether you keep them or not. I still remember the early years of my career, when I set many goals but did not have enough discipline to follow through. I thought I lacked opportunities. But the truth was, I lacked trust in myself. And that trust does not come from grand words, it comes from fulfilling small commitments every day. In today's video, I will share with you 7 reasons why keeping promises to yourself is so important, not just so you can achieve your goals, but so you can build a new identity, a person who can trust themselves. And you should stay until the end of the video, because reason number 7 could completely change the way you see yourself and the way you live each day. Reason 1, because every promise you break is quietly breaking your trust in yourself. There is something very few people say out loud, but you can feel it. Self-trust is not lost because of one big failure. It is lost because of hundreds of small broken promises. You say, tonight I will study for 1 more hour. You say, this month I will save money. You say, I will stay consistent just a little longer. But then you don't do it. No one else knows but you. But your mind knows. And each time, you send yourself a clear signal. My words carry no weight. I once thought confidence came from big achievements. But after years of observation and experience, I realized something different. Real confidence does not begin with major victories. It begins with fulfilling the smallest commitments. Imagine a concrete foundation. Every kept promise is another layer of concrete poured in. Every broken commitment, even a small one, is a tiny crack. You may not see it immediately, but over time, those cracks weaken the entire structure. I have been in that position. I set big goals for my career. I wanted more. I believed I had potential. But each morning I failed to do what I committed to. Each week I delayed important tasks. And then I wondered why I was not moving forward. The truth was I did not lack opportunity. I lacked trust in myself. Keeping promises to yourself is how you build self-trust, the internal belief that you can rely on yourself. And when you have that, you no longer need someone else to push you. You do not need to wait for inspiration. You act because you have proven to yourself, I am someone who keeps my word. You might think, it's just one missed workout. But your mind does not see it that way. It records. We did not do what we said. And if you cannot trust yourself in small things, how will you trust yourself when facing big ones? Success in business, finance, or career, all of it requires you to bet on yourself. But you will never make a big bet if you have never proven that you are reliable in small matters. Keeping promises to yourself is not about proving something to the world. It is about proving something to yourself. And when you begin keeping small commitments, waking up 30 minutes earlier, finishing work on time, reading 1 more chapter, you are quietly building a new foundation. A stronger one where confidence is no longer a temporary feeling but the result of repeated evidence. I learned that every big change begins with a very small awakening. And that awakening is realizing that each broken promise does not just cost you an action, it weakens you. The question for you is, how long has it been since you fully kept a small promise to yourself? And if you do not begin rebuilding that trust today, what do you think your life will look like 5 years from now? But this is only the beginning, because self-trust is just the first layer. The next reason goes deeper. It concerns the person you are truly becoming. Reason 2, because keeping promises is how you redefine your identity. There is a huge difference between wanting to become disciplined and actually being disciplined. Most people live in the space between those two states. They say, I am trying to change. They say, I am working on becoming better. But they still see themselves as someone who is trying, not someone who has become. And that is the key point. You do not act consistently because of goals. You act consistently because of identity. I realized this when I observed successful people in business and in life before 2009. They did not wake up every morning convincing themselves to work hard. They worked hard because that was who they were. They did not try to keep promises. They were people who kept them. Keeping promises to yourself is how you provide evidence to your mind about who you are becoming. If you say you value health but constantly skip exercise, your mind will not believe you. But if you keep your commitment to work out every morning, even for just 20 minutes, you are sending a clear message. I am someone who takes care of my body. Identity is not built by declarations. It is built by repeated action. Imagine you are writing a book about your own life. Every kept promise is a line carved deeply into the page. Every broken promise is a paragraph erased. Over time, that book tells a clear story, who you are. I once made the mistake of thinking that setting big goals was enough to change my life. But I learned that goals only give you direction. A new identity determines whether you reach the destination. One person says, I want to become wealthy. Another says, I am someone who learns every day and increases my value. The two statements may sound similar, but the second contains an identity, and that identity drives daily behavior. Keeping promises to yourself is how you move from I hope to I am. You are no longer someone trying to save money. You become a financially disciplined person. You are no longer someone trying to read more. You become a lifelong learner. That shift may seem subtle, but it changes the entire trajectory of your life. When identity changes, right action is no longer a battle of willpower. It becomes a natural rhythm. Just like someone who sees himself as an athlete does not argue with himself about training, it is obvious. And I realized something profound. You cannot rise beyond the identity you believe about yourself. If deep inside you still think you are undisciplined, you will always find ways to prove it. But if you begin keeping small promises a little each day, you are rewriting that story. The question for you is, what evidence are you providing your mind each day? Are you proving that you are reliable or proving the opposite? Keeping promises to yourself does not just help you finish tasks. It helps you build a new person. And when that new person becomes strong enough, success is no longer distant. It becomes inevitable. But a new identity cannot survive without internal momentum to sustain it. And that is where reason number 3 appears, the power of momentum that so many people underestimate. Reason 3, because small wins create irreversible momentum, there is a principle of success that many people overlook. Life does not change because of one single big decision. It changes because of small actions repeated long enough to create momentum. You can start very strong. You can have one inspired day. But inspiration does not create lasting success. Momentum does. Imagine a massive steel flywheel. The first time you push it, it barely moves. You push a second time, a third time it is still heavy. But if you keep pushing little by little, at some point the wheel begins to turn. And once it spins fast enough, its own momentum helps you maintain the motion with far less effort. Keeping promises to yourself is like those first pushes. Every time you complete a small commitment, waking up earlier, finishing work on time, saving a small amount of money, you create another rotation. At first, you see no difference. But after 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, you begin to feel something clearly. You are moving forward. I observed this in business many years ago. Successful people did not always have impressive beginnings. They simply did small things well, long enough to create an advantage. While many others searched for breakthroughs, they stayed consistent with steady steps. That is the difference between explosive and sustainable. When you fail to keep promises to yourself, you interrupt momentum. It is like pushing the flywheel a few times and then quitting. The next time you return, you must start from zero again. And that constant restarting is what makes many people feel exhausted and doubtful. But when you keep your word, even in small ways, you preserve motion. You do not need one massive action to make a difference. You simply need to avoid breaking the chain of right actions. I learned that success is not a matter of speed, it is a matter of inertia. When you have inertia, you struggle less. You depend less on emotions. You act because you are used to acting. Maybe today you read only 10 pages. Tomorrow another 10. After 1 year, you have read thousands of pages. No single day was extraordinary. But the final result is completely different. That is the power of momentum. And here's what is fascinating. Momentum does not only affect external results. It affects your mood, your confidence, the way you walk. When you know you are keeping promises to yourself, you carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You think differently. You no longer ask, can I really do this? You begin thinking, I am already doing it. The question for you is, are you building momentum or constantly breaking it? If today you keep one small promise and tomorrow you keep another, what will happen after 1 year. But remember, momentum only truly matters when it is built on self-respect. And that leads to the next reason, one that touches the core of your values. Reason 4, because keeping promises is the highest expression of self-respect, there is a common misunderstanding about discipline. Many people think discipline is force, doing what you do not like, fighting yourself every day. But I see it differently. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is respect. When you keep promises to yourself, you send a very clear message. I value myself. I value my time. I value the potential I have been given. On the other hand, when you repeatedly break promises to yourself, what are you really saying? You are saying your goals are not important enough. Your health is not valuable enough. Your future can be postponed just a little longer. And that attitude is what is truly dangerous. I have met very intelligent, very talented people, but they lacked one thing: internal self-respect. They allowed themselves to slide through small compromises. They accepted standards below their true ability. Keeping promises to yourself is how you set a standard. It says, I do not accept a mediocre version of myself. Imagine you own a priceless asset. You would protect it. You would take care of it. You would not let it deteriorate carelessly. That asset is you. Your time is limited. Your energy is limited. Your opportunities are limited as well. When you promise to learn a new skill and you follow through, you are investing in that priceless asset. When you promise to save money and you do it, you are protecting your future. When you promise to complete an important task and you keep your word, you are affirming that your life deserves that seriousness. I once ignored this principle and paid for it with years of stagnation. I thought a few small broken promises did not matter, but those small compromises gradually lowered my internal standard without me noticing. And once your internal standard drops, your external results follow. Keeping promises to yourself is how you raise that standard again, not to impress others, not to prove anything to the world, but so that at the end of the day you can look in the mirror and say, I did what I said. That feeling is not loud, but it is powerful. It creates an inner calm, a certainty that you are on the right path. And when you have that calm, you are not easily shaken by circumstances. The question for you is, are you treating yourself like a priceless asset or like something that can be postponed indefinitely? If today you begin keeping even the smallest promise to yourself, you are raising your self-respect little by little. But there is an even deeper layer, because every promise is not only about the present, it is about the future you are building. And that brings us to the next reason. Reason 5, because every commitment is a contract with your future. Think about this seriously. Every time you write down a goal, every time you say, I will change, you are essentially signing a contract, not with a bank, not with a business partner, but with your own future. And the real question is, are you honoring that contract? In business, if you sign a contract and break it, you pay a price. Your reputation suffers, your opportunities shrink, others lose trust in you. But when you break a contract with yourself, the cost is even greater, you just do not see it immediately. You say, I will start saving this month. You say, I will take my career seriously. You say, I will invest time in personal growth. But if you do not follow through, what happens? You are not just missing an action, you are stealing from your own future. I once learned a very clear lesson. The future is not built in the future, it is built in the present. And every decision today is either strengthening or weakening your future self. Imagine you could see yourself 5 years from now. That version is stronger, more confident, more successful. What is that person waiting for from you today? One small action, one kept promise, one commitment carried through. But if you repeatedly break those commitments, you send the opposite message. My future can wait. And the future does not wait. Time keeps moving. Opportunities come and go. The market rewards real value. If you do not increase your value as you promised, you will not receive the rewards you expect. Keeping promises to yourself is how you protect the interests of your future. It is like consistently investing in a fund. Each deposit may be small, but over time, accumulation creates results that one single big action cannot replace. I learned that successful people are not those who never stumble. They are those who do not allow themselves to break their contract with the future too many times. They may make mistakes, they may slow down, but they do not withdraw from the commitments they set. And I want you to ask yourself one very direct question. If another person treated you the way you are treating your own future, would you trust that person? Keeping promises to yourself is not just discipline, it is responsibility. Responsibility for the potential you carry, responsibility for the opportunities you have, responsibility for the person you can become. Will you protect that contract or continue postponing it? But there is still another dimension, one that affects how the world sees you and how you step into relationships. And that is the next reason. Reason 6. Because internal credibility determines external strength, there is a very quiet but extremely powerful law in life. The way you treat yourself determines the way the world treats you. If you do not keep promises to yourself, you are weakening something invisible but critically important, your internal credibility. Credibility does not start on the outside, it starts on the inside. Before others believe you, you have to believe yourself. Before you can convince the market, a partner, or a customer, you must be able to convince yourself to act. I have watched many people with great ideas. They speak well, they have clear plans, but when it is time to execute, they hesitate, they procrastinate, and then they wonder why others do not trust them. The simple truth is, you cannot transmit certainty if you lack certainty inside. When you keep promises to yourself, you are building quiet credibility. You know that if you say you will do something, you will do it, and that certainty changes how you speak, how you make decisions, how you walk into a room. You do not need to brag. You do not need to be loud. Your consistency speaks for itself. I learned that long-term success is built on trust. In business, people work with you because they trust you will do what you committed to. In personal life, people rely on you because they trust you keep your word. But if you do not keep your word to yourself, it is very hard to maintain that consistency with others. Because every time you break an internal commitment, you weaken your inner standard. And when your inner standard is unclear, your outer behavior becomes unstable too. Keeping promises to yourself helps you build a stable axis, an anchor you can rely on during difficult times. There are days you have no motivation. There are days you are exhausted. There are days you want to quit. But when you have built internal credibility, you no longer decide based on temporary emotions. You decide based on commitment. I once realized this. Strong people are not people without negative emotions. They are simply people who do not let emotions decide instead of their promises. The question for you is, if today you promise yourself something, do you believe you will follow through? If the answer still hesitates, it is not because you lack ability. It is because you have not built enough internal credibility. And trust me, when you begin keeping promises to yourself consistently, the outside world will respond differently. Opportunities come to those who are reliable. Trust creates influence. Influence creates success. But it all begins on the inside. And finally, there is one most important reason, the reason that determines how you live each day. It is not only about belief, identity, or credibility. It is about whether you truly take control of your life. Reason 7. Because keeping promises helps you live intentionally instead of reactively, many people's lives do not lack effort, but they lack direction. They wake up each day and react to circumstances. Work shows up, so they do it. Pressure shows up, so they handle it. Emotions show up, so they act on emotions. And then they wonder why the years pass and their lives do not truly change. Living reactively means letting circumstances decide your rhythm. Living intentionally means you decide that rhythm. Keeping promises to yourself is the boundary between these two ways of living. When you say, I will read 30 minutes every day, and you do it regardless of your schedule, you are living intentionally. When you say, I will save a portion of my income each month, and you do it even when you are tempted to spend, you are living intentionally. When you say, I will finish what I started, and you follow through, you are taking back control. I realize something important. If you do not decide your life with clear commitments, circumstances will decide for you. Procrastination is not a neutral decision. It is a quiet decision that you accept the status quo. And the status quo, if not changed intentionally, will keep repeating itself. Keeping promises to yourself helps you shift from being dragged by circumstances to leading yourself. It is like gripping the steering wheel instead of letting the boat drift with the current. Maybe you cannot control every wind, but you can control your direction. And that direction is determined by the commitments you keep every day. I used to think taking control of life meant hitting big milestones. But after many years, I understood that control begins with very small decisions. Waking up on time, completing what you promised, continuing when no one is watching. When you keep promises to yourself, you are training the muscle of will, and that will allow you to say no to what is easy so you can say yes to what is right. You no longer live by mood. You live by standards. You no longer wait for motivation. You act on commitment. And when you live that way long enough, you begin to feel a deep shift. You no longer feel stuck. You no longer feel controlled by circumstances. You know that even with small steps, you are still moving forward. The final question I want you to ask yourself is, are you living by your own decisions or by yesterday's drift? Keeping promises to yourself is not a simple personal development technique. It is the foundation of an intentional life. It is the bridge between intention and results. It is how you turn potential into reality. And now, when you understand the 7 reasons why keeping promises to yourself is so important, everything becomes clearer. You and I both have a gift today. You can keep procrastinating, or you can start with one small commitment and fully keep it. If these insights resonate with you, press like and subscribe so we can continue this journey with Jim Rohn Motivation. Leave a comment below. What promise will you keep to yourself today? Success is not a destination, it is the journey you persist in every day. And maybe today is the day you start keeping your word to yourself. Look back at the entire journey we have just walked through. Keeping promises to yourself is not just a good habit. It is the foundation of internal trust. It is where a new identity is formed. It is the source of momentum. It is the expression of self-respect. It is the contract with your future. It is internal credibility that creates external strength. And finally, it is how you live intentionally instead of reactively. All of that begins with something that seems very small. A promise. Maybe it is the promise to wake up 30 minutes earlier. Maybe it is the promise to finish an unfinished task. Maybe it is the promise to save a small amount of money each month. It does not matter whether it is big or small. What matters is whether you keep it. I learned that success does not come from loud decisions. It comes from quiet decisions that are kept. The world may not see your effort, but you do. And you are the first person who must trust you. If today you begin keeping one small promise to yourself, you are changing the trajectory of your life. Not immediately, but certainly, do not wait until everything is perfect. Do not wait for a more convenient moment. Do not wait for new motivation. You and I both have a gift. Today, use it wisely. If this video helped you reflect on how you are living, press like and subscribe to continue this journey with me. Share this video with a friend who is also on a personal growth journey. And I want you to comment one very specific thing. Today, what promise will you keep to yourself? Success is not accidental. It is a series of right decisions repeated every day. And everything great begins with one small decision. Maybe that decision is the one you make right now. I truly appreciate you staying until the end of this video. Let's begin. And keep your word.